Hello, everyone. My name is Marlasia Haskell, and I am a part of the Lake Agassiz consultations. Today I'm presenting alongside Jessica Church and Alex Peterson. Together we have assessed and looked over the environmental assessment on the use of NRCS conservation practices to address natural resource concerns on non-federal lands in the New England states and New York by NRCS's proposed action is to provide federal financial assistance and associated technical assistance under the various conservation programs administered by the NRCS for implementation of conservation practices on non-federal lands. The proposed action would be an implementation and adoption of conservation practices accelerated in many settings, such as cropland, pastureland, livestock areas within the headquarters, forestland, and wildlife lands. The practices considered in this EA are listed in Appendix E, with an indication of the land uses on which each practice is commonly applied. Network diagrams and associated narratives for this listed practices can be found in Appendix F. The purpose and need of this project is to effectively use NRCS authorities to assist and improve natural resource conditions on non-federal lands in the New England states and New York, and this is to promote high-quality productive soils, clean and abundant water, healthy and well-managed plant communities, healthy animal communities, clean air that is free of harmful substances, and an adequate energy supply. Here's a visual of the states that the project is targeting. The no action alternative would be that the NRCS would not provide financial assistance or technical assistance associated with financially assisted conservation programs. However, the NRCS would continue to provide other technical and planning assistance to landowners upon request. The no action alternative would be without the NRCS would lead to most of the conservation practices needed not be implemented, resulting in reduced rates of implementation and adoption by landowners across the landscape. Under this no-action alternative, farmers would most likely not be able to implement the more costly or management-intensive conservation practices on their own. Considerable costs are often associated with compliance with regulatory requirements of federal, state, tribal, and local environmental laws, such as the Clean Water Act. Negative effects of the no-action alternative would lead to loss in soil productivity, crop forage and livestock production, surface and groundwater quality, quality of aquatic habitats, and the sustainability of agriculture and region as farm, and associated community profits decline. In Appendix F, it has over 50 plus network diagrams, such as an access road. And here's an example of the network diagram of an access road. The access roads are travel ways for equipment and vehicles constructed as part of a conservation plan. The access roads installed would provide a fixed route for vehicle travel for resource management activities while protecting the soil, water, air, fish, wildlife, and other adjacent natural resources. Access roads can range from seasonal use roads designed for low speed and rough driving conditions to all-weather roads heavily used by public and designed with safety as a high priority. The access roads are designed to serve the enterprise or planned use with expected vehicle or equipment traffic. The type of vehicle or equipment, speed, loads, soil, climate, and other conditions under which the vehicles and equipment are expected to operate must be considered. Planned work must also comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Where general public use is anticipated, roads must be designed to meet applicable federal, state, and local criteria. Access roads are applied as part of conservation management systems on various land uses, including headquartered areas, croplands, pastures, and forest lands. The practices associated with the access roads will vary by land use, but may include stream crossings, critical area planting, fish passage, and various practices associated with runoff and erosion control. And here I would like to pass it off to my coworker, Jessica Church.
Hi, my name is Jessica Church from Lake Agassiz Consultation. We're here to make your EA legally adequate. So what is missing from the EA? There are not enough alternatives. The only alternative was the no action alternative A. An effective EA needs 3 to 4 viable alternatives besides the no action alternative. The EA should explore alternatives thoroughly and build out assumptions. At this point, we don't know which alternative we're going to choose. So to only have one viable alternative is not enough. We need to have a broad discussion of all the alternatives that could be had. When deciding between alternatives, we need to have a discussion of why alternative B was chosen. It needs to be specifically stated in a paragraph. We're missing the impacts of the alternatives, specifically stated in a paragraph labeled impacts. An EA is a fact-finding process to help make better decisions, and it should clearly state that no decision has been made yet. Mitigation. It's missing specific mitigation options. The mitigation efforts were not clearly stated, saying it needs to have a paragraph or a section for mitigation, just to know that it's there. Alternative B sounds like it mitigates the effects of not doing any action, alternative A. And it needs to clearly state that. Nowhere in the document did it say this is the mitigation action. Appendix F gives 50 plus action suggestions, and that is good. 50 plus ways that we can mitigate the action of not taking action. So there are a bunch of mitigation options out there in Appendix F, but it's not labeled mitigation. So we don't know if there is any mitigation. The next section is scoping. The EA did not thoroughly use the scoping process. Members of the public and stakeholders were not consulted. There were no meetings or news postings. The tribes and cooperating agencies were consulted, though. So here we have a cutout from the actual EA. It clearly states that members of state technical committees in each of the New England states and New York were provided an opportunity to review and comment on the draft EA. State technical communities include representatives from federal, state, local, and Indian tribal governments, as well as representatives of organizations knowledgeable about conservation issues. And that's all great. I'm glad that they reached out to those communities. However, the public and specific stakeholders were not reached out. If you're not a part of one of these elite clubs, then you were not notified of this EA. Scoping continued. Legally adequate EAs have to invite the public for comment. And if the scoping meeting wasn't held, There needs to be a couple sentences clearly stating why the scoping meeting wasn't held and clearly stating why the public wasn't notified of the EA being created. Appendix A is a list of acronyms. Acronyms are a shortened version of a longer word or phrase. It's important to have the list of acronyms at the beginning of your document, not at the very end, because if you're starting to look through the document, you need to know what these words mean like before they come up, not after, to alleviate any confusion.